Hey everyone, it's Zach with Palantir Research. More news coming out of Europe continues to show the optimism, at least for myself, in regards to the government military side of Palantir's business. I know commercial has been a sore spot and really has been a drag overall on their business, but the good part of Palantir is their applicability on both the commercial and defense side. So the two news points that I did want to cover in regards to this was in their participation in DALO, Industry of Day, for this year in 2023, and that's taking place this week actually on August 23rd to 24th. And a German article covering how the role of artificial intelligence and the war in Ukraine are playing together, where there was actually an interesting quote here that shows optimism by the Ukrainian side, where they see themselves even selling software to Palantir eventually in the future. So DALO first. This will take place in Denmark this week, and Industry Day is a huge event, especially for the Danes, of course, considering DALO stands for the Danish Ministry of Defense Acquisition and Logistics Organization. Think of them as the government arm for the Danes, at least, that works in military technology from the R&D side, but also the procurement and supply side, where they contemplate not only domestic options, but allied ones as well, like Palantir, which comes from the US. So the big thing here is, at least for Palantir, is going to participate at the event, and officially they do get a description as a world-leading AI and software company with more than 10 years in Denmark and customers in most NATO countries. So that's a great description, of course. The recognition is there for Palantir, and of course to be presented in such a manner and in that light is always nice, meaning at least amongst these kinds of customers and in that industry, they truly understand the reputation and power of Palantir. Now, Denmark has been a NATO ally for as long as time, right after the Second World War in 1949, but do note there was some conditions to them adding themselves at the time of joining NATO, and a lot of this has to deal with the relations with Russia at the time. But as we've seen in the overall region, of course, with Sweden and Finland recently joining, Sweden will officially soon, it's not a surprise, of course, for Denmark being basically forced to be closer to NATO as a member. So as always, great to see Palantir's participation in these kinds of events, and I've made several videos on why I'm bullish on their business for Europe, not necessarily in the short term and especially on the commercial side, but in the next 3 to 5 years with NATO expansion and beefing up that kind of military. Now, another related note here when it comes to European optimism is there was an interesting article that came out of Germany from Tagesschau. I'm not sure if I'm saying that right, but I'm not sure actually as well on their notability in Germany, but there was a very interesting quote there that made me take a second look. So the whole article itself, and you can go through this yourself in detail, and I'll link it below. It covers how AI technology companies and tech companies in general are playing a huge role in Ukraine. And there is optimism, of course, around the evolution of war to eventually get to a hypothetical world of being only a war of machines with no humans. So I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, but albeit they note that's still definitely far into the future. But basically, we are at this forefront of the war where we're mixing human and technology more and more today, and it is being seen today with the war in Ukraine against the Russians, where of course there's still conventional weapons being used, but we're enhancing this with technology. But this quote where the Ukrainians see themselves in the future with that optimism, they can picture themselves selling software to Palantir by the end of the war. This is because of all the use cases and expertise they've actually built up from their drone warfare, which they envision actually will be a large part of the wars going forward, which I agree with actually coming to fruition. When it comes to also Russia's side, they have an explosion in use of drones, as well as both figuratively and literally. Of course, they're using drones to explode things, but they're also using it much more and ramping up that production. Palantir can play a huge role in Europe in the defense sector over the next decade, especially on the drone side there in artificial intelligence and targeting. And I'm confident Palantir will at least be a major player to be considered by NATO countries as we see a world become more geopolitically unstable rather than unified or peaceful. Of course, it'll be nice if we can get to that point, but we have to be realistic here. And we also know for Asia, and especially in the South China Sea area, we'll probably see that being another hotbed there, but I'll keep a lookout for more info on those points over time. We know that Palantir is probably going to work closely with South Korea and Japan, maybe the Philippines as well, considering that they're all allies with the West, but China has been very aggressive in that region. But what are your thoughts on all this? Do you agree Palantir has a bright future in Europe, at least on the defense side? Let me know below, and as always, thanks for watching, and shout out to my channel members going the extra mile with your generous support, and I'll see you all in the next video.